especially men. That's what a midlife crisis, I think, is for dudes, is they realize that they've made a bunch of bad choices or choices they don't like, and they're stuck and they don't know how to get out. But they won't ask themselves a hard question. They won't look at the things that they haven't done, the responsibility they haven't taken in their life. They won't make any hard decisions. And so they're stuck. Dude, it sucks, man, when you get there. But the only way to avoid that is to constantly look at yourself and do your work. And by work, I mean emotional work. Am I being the best person I can? Am I being honest with myself? And if you're constantly honestly asking yourself these questions, you can't help but grow. You're gonna grow. That's just how it works. And then you change. And then, you become hopefully a better and better version of yourself. Not always the same, though. I'm never gonna be as, quote, cool as I was when I was 29, right? In certain ways. But I'm way better in almost every other way.
I'm joined by Tucker Max. Tucker, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you on, man. I was saying earlier, I posted out that I was going to have you on the show, and my DMs have just been on fire all day. Originally, we were just going to talk about Scribe Media, and we're going to go into the nuances of book writing and stuff like that. We're going to get into that. But I think there's some other bits that I'd love to get into first. So to kind of set the scene for people who might not fully know your backstory, how do you get to where you are now, head of Scribe Media, best-selling author, but sort of how do you get there?
Right. So it's a long backstory. So I'll hit the highlights and then you can kind of dive into wherever you want.
Cool.
Let's see. I went to undergrad at University of Chicago, law school at Duke, and then got fired from being a lawyer in 3 weeks. My dad fired me from the family business in 6 months. Then didn't really know what to do. Found my way into I was writing emails to my friends that they thought were hilarious. And through a long series of sort of stuff, I ended up putting my stuff up on a website, my stories. They blew up, got a ton of attention. MTV, a girl sued me. It was all the sort of normal controversy. And then, so I ended up writing a book. It became I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, which the New York Times said invented a literary genre called fratire and has sold, 1.5 million copies now or more worldwide, translated into whatever it is, 30 or 40 languages, something. And then wrote 2 more books. First there was a movie made about that book, about my life. And then the 2 more books, Assholes Finish First and Hilarity Ensues. Sorry, in Sloppy Seconds, 3 more books. Those have all told have sold, 3.5, 4 million-ish. And then did a few other things. The big thing was start Scribe. I just had a bunch of people asking me, how do I write and publish a book? And so I started a company that helps people do that. And it's 5 years later. And, we did David Goggins' book, which is huge, and Tiffany Haddish and a bunch of others. And so here we are.
Man, what a story. I love how you said all of the normal sort of controversy. All of us are getting sued by ex-girlfriends and stuff on a consistent basis. That's funny. So one of the things that I really wanted to delve into with you, because I think that you've got quite a unique insight on this because you've been so transparent in that journey from going and being, a classic party boy, right? The UK's got a big drinking culture, big party culture.
Right.
My job, I fill nightclubs. I've run nightclubs for 13 years. That's what I do, bread and butter, right? So I've seen 1 million drunk people-ish, just over 1 million drunk people. So I know what it looks like, and so does everyone that's listening.
Yeah.
What I'm really interested in finding out is what happens when we go from, as men, young men, we go from being that guy who is living quite viscerally, party lifestyle. There's a point where it's, for some people, gradual, for some people, sudden, but there's a point where you stop being that and you start to be a simulacrum of the guy that your dad is or was, or, a dad to be. You get me? There's not many dads that I know. Even, I've got some friends that are pretty loose. I don't know many of the dads that are out on the lash in the same way that a 22-year-old's out on the lash.
Yeah.
And I really want to get into that.
They're real shitty fathers. That's for sure.
They're bad dads. Yeah, you're right. So what was that process like for you? Because obviously you were so transparent, such a big partier, all of these sort of very well publicized experiences, and now you're a dad, two wonderful kids.
3.
Three.
Yeah.
Man, congratulations.
How are you not up to the minute on my life? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
It's so funny, dude. You're definitely English, because there is no American podcaster that would ever use the word simulacrum. Like, I know what that means, but there is no American, like, thank God I have like advanced degrees, because most Americans go, what the fuck is he talking about? What is a simulacrum?
Sorry.
All right. Yeah, you know what's funny too, man? When my books came out, like, they blew up in America and all this controversy, whatever. And all the English people were like, what are the Americans up in arms about? Everyone does this. This dude just got drunk and threw up and acted like an idiot. Like, no, the British were like,
Big
some of them
deal.
thought it was funny, some didn't, but they were like, why are you guys, America's a whole different culture with that stuff, man. Like, my books in England would, like, they did okay, but they no one cared, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there was no element of naughtiness and seediness there, you know? Anyway, so how did I become a dad? So it's funny, at least in America, I'm not sure in England. In America, the stereotype is the bad boy gets converted by his love for the right woman, right? That's always how it works. And but that's never how that's always a stereotype. It's never how it actually works. In America, if you're like like the bad boy is a younger guy, you kind of, there's two paths. There's two archetypes you can take. You can keep going, right? And like play that up. Like, I could have played, man, listen, I'm 44 now. I could be the 44-year-old guy traveling the world, still banging young girls and whatever. Like, I know those guys. They usually go on and own bars or promote nightclubs, a lot of them, or they get into that lifestyle. Or things that are similar, entertainment business, whatever, or you basically like reform, right? Those are kind of the archetypes, but neither of those are like, I didn't want to be the old creepy dude, like, that was unappealing to me. But I wasn't going to reform, like, in terms of like, oh, what I did was bad, now I have to be good. That was bullshit to me. But what I did do, which is like not, it's an archetype, but it's not the way it plays out in America, is I did my work, right? So the question is always not, why do young people go out and drink and have fun, but why do some young people especially, and I was definitely one of them, go to ridiculous extremes with it, right? At least what I did in America was extreme. Might not be for England, but for America it was. And so it's always a question of like, why, right? And then I had to really, I made all this money, I did all this stuff. I basically got to the point where like everything in my life was perfect, as good as it could be. I was in amazing shape. I had money. I was rich. I was famous. I had girls, and I was way, way better off than when I was poor and anonymous, right, and broke and starving and whatever. But like, I still wasn't that happy, right? I wasn't that content. And so then I had to ask myself. At some point, you realize, well, the problem's me, right?
What sort of age was this? Can you remember?
Huh?
What sort of age was this?
34, 35, it was right after the movie, right? And so you have to make that decision. Do you realize the problem is you or not, right? And then most people don't, man. Most people think, no, the problem's always outside of me. So they spend the rest of their lives chasing money or success or women or drugs or whatever it is they use to run from their emotions. And I don't mean that judgmentally. It's just because God knows I was doing it for a long time. But like, or they turn inwards and say, all right, I'm going to fix my shit. Right. And, I started that about 30, let's call it 35 really in earnest. And, man, that's been a hard road, dude. Like, because it's funny. It's like, I forget the Buddha. There's a quote from Buddha. It's like, it's something about like, it's not hard to conquer an army, it's hard to conquer yourself, right? And I thought when I was like 28, I'm like, the Buddha didn't know what he's talking about. That was some dude with a bowl and a robe. Shut up, man. Now I'm like, God, that dude was wise. There's a reason people would listen to him for 5,000 years, right? Because turning inwards and dealing with your own shit was really hard. And so for me, it started just a high level. I started with talk therapy, like psychoanalysis, and that worked for like 4 years for me really well. Gave me a good map of my mind and my emotions, but I didn't really feel a lot in it. Like, it didn't, I understood what was going on. It's sort of like having a map of London and walking around the streets of London, totally different things, right? And so that's what it gave me a map. And then I started working with a shaman for a while, like an energy healer, not because I thought it would be a good idea. This woman just I thought that was nonsense. And this woman did some shit with me once, and like my wife was like, "Why are you so different today?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, No, you're way better. And I hadn't told her at all. And so I was like, crap, I'm not gonna work with this.
Fuck yeah, this proof's in the pudding.
Exactly.
Here,
Right, exactly. It was actually very frustrating for me. And so I worked with her for about a year, and that was fine. It worked well. Then it stopped working, and then I did a few other things here and there. Nothing really worked that well. I mean, I tried everything else, yoga, whatever, all these other things people try. Didn't work for me. And then the last 18 months, man, I've made more progress than I probably made the other 9 years combined, and that's with plant medicines. So like therapeutic psychotherapy, MDMA assisted psychotherapy, and psilocybin assisted, and that kind of stuff has just, man, it's like a startup where you see like slow growth and all of a sudden they hit the rocket ship. I've hit the rocket ship, I think, and I still haven't really gotten into the serious stuff. It's just gone way better. The last 18 months for me have been amazing, dude, the growth and all. And so how did I get to be where a dad? Well, to answer that question, first I had to decide I knew I wanted a family. And then I was like trying to date girls, and they're like, they all sucked. And then my analyst was like, this is when I was still seeing an analyst. She's like, well, who's the type of woman you want to meet and marry? And so I like listed this woman, and she's like it was like this amazing avatar of a woman. And she's like, okay, would that girl want to date you? And I'm like, of course she would. I'm rich and famous.
I'm awesome.
Like, right. And she's like, hold on, Tucker. You may be rich and famous, but you're also sleeping with like 2 girls a week and blah, blah, blah. Why is that girl going to date you? Why is she going to be one of many? Why? And I was like, and so I had to go through that whole process. I had to get ready to meet my wife. That was the big thing. And so like that, dude, it wasn't, most people just fall into this, man. And for me, it was a conscious evolution with a lot of fits and starts and mistakes along the way. Does that answer your question? I kind of rambled a little bit.
Absolutely, man. I got a million doorways open, so I think we got lots to delve into. Firstly, yeah, I totally get what you mean. I'm currently rereading Mark Manson's Models, and right. he talks a lot about that, right? About that compatibility. Like, where are you finding the women that you want to date? Where are you going? Like, if you want someone that's intellectual, like going out to the club 5 nights a week might not be...
Doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah, for sure. And you're actually flipping that on its head. You're like, am I the sort of person that the sort of girl I want to date would want to date? Certainly one of the things...
Which most guys never even think to ask that question.
But they just presume...
They never even think of it.
I think that most men, because of the way that dating and romance is popularized, I think that most men presume that their job is to kind of be there. It's like, if I'm here and I'm not fat and my shirt's not got no stuff on it, and like the girl turns up, like kind of, there's no real, I don't know. It just, I don't think that there's a narrative that men have to follow that's too good for that. But I mentioned before we started, I've kind of been immersed in Tucker Max over the last weekend. I've been traveling a lot, consuming a lot of the stuff that you've put out recently. One of the things that struck me is that you're very, very prepared to do introspective work and uncover quite ugly truths about yourself, which is something that over the last 4 years I've taken an almost cathartic pleasure in doing for myself. I've really strangely enjoyed it, that challenge. And
yeah, I don't enjoy it. It's fucking terrible. If you enjoy it, good for you. Like I enjoy the results of it. I enjoy it being done. The process is never like, oh, let's tear the fucking visor off and look at the hard, fierce truth that's awful and no one wants to. No, I'm not like, let's do that.
Okay, yeah, you're right. The process,
but I'm not excited about it ever.
Yeah, the process is uncomfortable. I think my curiosity and my desire to kind of find out why about me, I think is pretty strong. So talk to us about sort of being able to see transparencies, right? Because you were this guy, you had one kind of persona, even if that was you living your truth. And I think that you were. I don't think...
It was at the time, no doubt, 100%.
Yeah. So as that truth starts to change, there'll be parts of you that will want to cling on to the old you. And, girls that are listening, guys who maybe can't quite resonate with the young party guy will still know this, right? You have these epochs of your life. You have these little sections that you're going through, and you got to. How do you stop letting go of the last one? You're the guy. You're the party guy. Now you're the guy that used to be the party guy. Now you're the writer. Now you're the. You know what I mean? Like, how do you start?
So it's hard, man. So the metaphor, the question, it's funny, man. Like I get this all the time. I'm 44 with 3 kids and a very mature business. Like we did 8 figures in revenue last year. I'm not even the CEO. Like I hired a baller to run my company, right? And so I live in a huge house, a fucking pool, and a wine cellar, an insured wine cellar, like all this sort of shit. And I still get the dudes who like message me on Instagram or whatever. It's like, what the fuck, man? Like, when are we gonna get more stories? And I'm like, my response is always some version of the same. You played with toys, you played with dolls when you were 10. Do you still play with them now that you're 25? And they're always like, ooh. Like, it doesn't even occur to them that, if they think about it, obviously, but it doesn't even occur to them that, like, life has phases and life has seasons, and that certain things make a lot of sense in a certain season, make no sense in any other season, right? And especially with someone who's like celebrity or noteworthy, right? Because what happens, people don't realize, like, you have like you see this with athletes all the time. People have a very an emotionally intense relationship with an athlete in one stage of their life. Like they're, let's say, I don't know, whatever, 26 to like 33. They're like huge, Lionel Messi or Michael Jordan or LeBron James, like these. And so, like, it doesn't matter how, like for me, that was Michael Jordan when I was a young kid, right? Michael Jordan was the guy. And now Michael's like, his 60s or whatever. He's like old and disgusting and fat, and he's been an asshole his whole life, but now you really know. But still, like, people, like, if he was a god to you when you were 15, then, like, he's always a guy, and you, like, approach him that way, right? And you look at him like, and it's very frustrating because people don't look at you like a person. You're like an object, right? And so that's why a lot of those people get stuck, is because first off, that they were at their peak then. They're never going to get bigger, right? In terms of whatever success at basketball, let's just say with Jordan, he's never going to be bigger at basketball than he was in the late 90s. It's just not possible, right? And then he has people around him who always look at him that way, and so he's stuck there, right? And that almost happened to me. Of course, I was nowhere near as big as Jordan, but like, and you could make that happen. And I'm not talking about just celebrities in anything. You could just be, a good, I don't know, big in your little social circle, whatever. And it's the same dynamic. You know how I always phrase it? You can tell a man's peak year in his life because his wardrobe freezes there. Like my grandfather, I could tell what his peak year was. After he died, we cleared out his closet because he didn't buy anything else from anything past that period. He just froze his wardrobe right there, and he didn't change.
You think that's symbolic? He's trying to sort of hold on to that.
Holding on to that. They hold on to the car, the clothes, whatever, most, right? And that was just something that, like, I was never, like, I tried for a little while to hold on, but I'm like, what am I doing, man? Like, this isn't life. This doesn't make sense. And it's not about aging gracefully. It's about growing and evolving and becoming the best version of who you are now. And that's why, like, I don't understand these people who are like, man, dude, I love being older, man. Like, everything is better except, like, physical stuff, basically. Like, I have more money. I have more wisdom. I have a better friends. I'm more emotionally together in everything's better in my life, except, like, I can't deadlift as much anymore.
My knees ache
and
a bit
I'm
more.
Like a shitty athlete now. My knees hurt a little, and like that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah,
like I used to be able to have sex, whatever, 5 nights or 5 times a night. Now, like, man, 3 is like not easy for me, right? And like, so yeah, things change. But like, if you and that's why, especially men, that's what a midlife crisis, I think, is for dudes, is they realize that they've made a bunch of bad choices or choices they don't like, and they're stuck and they don't know how to get out. But they won't do what you talked about doing before. They won't ask themselves the hard questions. They won't look at the things that they haven't done, the responsibility they haven't taken in their life. They won't make any hard decisions. And so they're stuck, right? And like, that's just, yeah, dude, it sucks, man, when you get there. But the only way to avoid that is to constantly not reinvent. You don't even have to reinvent, man. You have to constantly look at yourself and do your work. And by work, I mean emotional work. Mm-hmm. Am I being the best person I can? Am I being honest with myself? Am I taking responsibility for myself? Am I doing these things? And if you're constantly honestly asking yourself these questions, you can't help but grow. You're gonna grow. That's just how it works. And then you change, and then you become whatever, hopefully a better and better version of yourself. Not always the same though. It's not like I'm never going to be as quote cool as I was when I was 29, right? Mm-hmm. In certain ways, but like I'm way better in almost every other way.
Mm-hmm. I think, what's interesting about that is people will find, both men and women, they will find some form of success, in quotation marks, some form of effectiveness within one particular domain, and then they just continue to double down. Double down. Yeah. And I don't know who the quote's from. You might be able to tell me who this is, but the goal is not to win the game. The goal is to keep on playing.
Yeah, I think that's from a book called Finite and Infinite Games. I forget the author. Simon Sinek just wrote his take on that.
Yes.
No, it's not Simon Sinek. No. Simon Sinek. Simon's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Simon's book about infinite games, there's a book called Infinite and Infinite Games, which is like where he got a lot of that idea.
Okay.
But it's not Sinek. He gets credit for too much other shit. Don't give him someone.
That's the problem, isn't it? It's like when people are clever like that. James Aldrich is the same. People have a little bit of success, continue to double down on that. I would stick to this particular thing, but it's not about that. It's about moving on to what is next. And you're right as well. You've touched on the fact that your social circle reinforces that, right? Even your fan base, they're not your social circle, but they're like, you're this guy. You're the party guy. You're the drunk guy. You're the girls sleeping with girls guy. You're the self-development guy. You're the writer guy. And as you perhaps want to evolve, especially if you have a being...
They don't want you to.
No, because
their relationship with you is based on its objectification. You are something... You nailed it. You are something to them. You are not a person to them at all. Like, dude, I can talk about this and fame forever. You are not a person to them at all. I mean, like, it's not that, like, it all boils down to me, Michael Jordan's not a person. He's an idealized basketball god. Mm-hmm. He's not a human. He's not a man, right? Mm-hmm. Because a man is flawed and complex and vulnerable and all these things, right? Michael Jordan's none of those things to me. He is a god. This is the purpose of myth and gods for humans. Mm-hmm. And because we don't believe in God anymore, that's just been replaced by celebrities, right? And so that's why they get these idealized shit. People didn't used to treat celebrities like this. Treating them well in high status is a different thing than this idealized worship.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I tell you what, I know that you touch on CrossFit as well, right? You've done a little bit of CrossFit in your time, so you'll understand this. Because CrossFit's such a fast-changing sport, you can tell how long someone's been doing CrossFit by who their favorite athlete is. It's like, oh, you're a Rich Froning guy. Oh, you're a Jason Khalipa. Oh, you're a Matt Fraser guy. Like, do you know what I mean? And it's such a fast-moving sport. It's kind of the same. Yeah. So, man, I've got a million doorways open. But one of the things I really want to get into is you're quite a cerebral person, from what I can tell. You like to be able to rationalize. You can rationalize. You're sufficiently clever to be able to do that. A lot of the time when we think that we're doing the work, you've spoken about this, right? Do the work. Uncover your hidden biases. What are the motives that are guiding your life? What are the things that you need to work on? What are the things that you need to do? But if you are sufficiently cerebral, or you can tell yourself good enough stories, a lot of the time you can come up with something which is a proxy for the truth. This isn't actually doing the work, but it's close enough for me to feel like I'm satisfied in doing the work. It's like McDonald's versus food, right? It's like it fills you up, but it's kind of not nutritious.
Yeah.
How do we talk about that?
Well, dude, I mean, that's the trap, right? I forget the quote. It was somebody like the Buddha or one of his many disciples who said that the cleverest trick of the ego is to to bend spirituality to its wishes, right? And so like you see this in people who, I'll give you a really good example. So for years, there was a specific person I'm thinking about, but a couple people, but really one who's famous. I'm not going to say his name because he's still a friend of mine. And I've said this to his face, so, but I just don't want to like, put my private conversations with him in public. But like, he would not shut the fuck up about ayahuasca. Like just every conversation I had with this dude, ayahuasca this and ayahuasca that and ayahuasca, you got to do ayahuasca. And like, I don't mind someone like, oh yeah, like I don't think it's wise to talk about psychedelics that way. You shouldn't recommend them to people. Talk about your experience and let them come to it on their own. But like, we knew each other well enough where it was fine. But like, his life was fucked up, man. I kept like telling him, dude, your life is a mess. And if you're telling me to do this, it makes me not want to do it. And so like, I didn't do it for a long time because like I associated it with him and his mess, right? And so like to bring it back to your question, it's called, and what I realized, like once I got deeper into that realm and I got to the real practice, like he was new to it. I got to the real practitioners who've been doing it 10 or 20 years and who were serious.
Plant medicine, do you
and
mean?
like, yeah, plant medicines and like ayahuasca shamans and other shamans. They have a name for what he was doing. They call it spiritual bypass, right? And basically it's the people who use these medicines to get the experience to feel spiritual and to feel like they had something happen, but not do any of the actual underlying, what you were talking about before, the really hard emotional work, facing your shadow, right? Realizing things you've done, taking accountability for your actions, all owning your shit, right? And so like, that's when I was like, oh, once that got explained to me, I'm like, okay, my problem's not with him. It's with how he's acting. And I could actually do this right. It's not, I get it. So, dude, that's one of the hardest things, man. I can't tell you how this, and the worst part is the smarter you are, like your defenses are as smart as you, right? And so like, oh, dude,
it's a never-ending war between you and your smarter brain. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, your ego is designed to keep you alive, right? To keep you safe. And the main tool it has to keep you alive is stasis. It wants to keep you the same. Because if you're alive now, right, doing what you're doing, changing is a risk of death. And so like, it doesn't want you to change, not because it's against you. It's just like, imagine like, like the super conservative, hyper risk averse mom. That's your ego, right? And so like, what you have to do, what I've had to do is learn to get in I have to see it first. Understand, oh shit, my brain is tricking me. My ego, ego part of my brain is tricking me to stop me from growing and changing, right? And then I get in a dialogue and it's like, okay, hold on, like you have to realize there's different parts of your brain that have different agendas. And it's actually great. Like they all work in balance. The movie Inside Out from Pixar is an amazing example of this. Like, have you seen that movie?
No.
It's like, you think Pixar's a kid's movie. It's an amazing movie because it shows you how like sadness, happy, joy, anger, like these are all discussed. Your core emotions all have very important purposes and work together, right? And then when they get out of balance, how they get messed up. But like it's really, 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 really hard to do that, man, to really understand there is a part of me trying to keep me the same. And it's a good, valuable part. I just need to not listen to it all the time because if I want to grow, I've got to change, right?
Yeah.
And then I've got to take that risk. Dude, that took me, man, I don't know how long it took me. I did a session that was with obviously a very experienced guy with a specific type of medicine that kind of created an ego death, like where your ego really does die in you. And dude, it was crazy, man. As I was going into this is like a serious one, psychedelic. And I heard myself. I thought I was thinking, they tricked you. This is your new reality. You're going to get stuck here. You're going to die. Right? I thought I was thinking that.
Exactly what you want just as you're entering a trip.
right? And a big one too. And so like, of course I'm like freaked out, whatever. But at that point I'm pretty experienced. I was with people I knew and trusted and very safe environment. So like I was able to kind of surrender and let go. It wasn't until a few days later, I was like, hold on a minute. That was my fucking ego dying. That was like, oh my God. And that's when I realized like the trick the ego plays on you is that it convinces you that it is you.
Mm-hmm.
That you and your ego are the same thing, and they are not. It's a part of you. It's an important part of you. It can just be destructive if you listen too much. That's what the Buddhists mean when they say you are the observer, not the speaker, right? Is they're saying the true self is the self that sees and observes and experiences. And the ego and all these other parts of you are different parts of your brain that like are part of you, but not you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still trying to figure this out now. Like, it's like, I'm not like some, Zen monk that's been doing this for 40 years, right? Like I'm 18 months in, but it all made sense. And as soon as I understood that, then I started like really kind of essentially talking to myself in a different, like a crazy person sort of, but in a different way, and realizing, oh, okay, I'm afraid of that, or I'm telling myself I don't want to do that. It's like, hold on, why am I doing that? Because what's a good example? My mom, right? I don't have a good relationship with my mom. I just kind of like, that all came to a head. Like, and so long story short, I hadn't talked to her in 12 years. And so I realized I needed to reach out to her, and I didn't want to. And so I had this whole sort of like battle with myself, right? And I realized the ego is like, no, don't reach out to her. No, she was wrong. All these things, these are good arguments. But I was like, hold on. You're trying to keep me the same. I get it. Thank you for protecting me. I'm going to reach out. And then like we didn't meet up, but because of the dynamics around it, I was able to just let that go. I had all this shit, resentment and anger, and what I was able to let all that go because I didn't listen to my ego there. Does it make sense?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. What it sounds like recently, you made a graph. For the people that were listening, you talked about a graph. You can imagine one that's going up exponentially. It's getting more and more as time goes on, and the increases are getting greater as well. When you talked about your progress, and you were highlighting the fact that the plant medicines really kind of supercharged that over the last 18 months. One thing that I'm fascinated by is this period we're talking about for men, and I can't speak for women, but it might happen for girls as well. But for men, maybe between mid to late 20s to hopefully mid 30s, where something happens, they start to realize, look, I need to kind of let go of that past version of myself.
Right. Do
you think that you can have these insights and you can have that conversation with the ego without doing some of the work first? For instance, can I just dive into plant medicine? Is it just going to enlighten me? Or no. Could you be where you are now without having done 9 years of psychotherapy and meditation, yoga, blah, blah?
It's hard to say, man. It really is. It depends on the person, dude.
So you're not certain, though? You could have done.
All right. So I know a girl who is totally in touch with her emotions and like doesn't take any of this stuff, and she's fine. And people like Michael Singer, who wrote the Untethered Soul, like, huge book. That dude just sat in a fucking swamp and meditated 2 hours a day, right? And got there. And so, no, you do not need plant medicines to get there. I do not think you do. But are they really helpful for a lot of people? Yes. Were they, at this point for me and all the trauma that I've been through, were they basically a necessity for me? Yeah, I think. Maybe a necessity, maybe not. I don't know. They worked, though. And they were amazing for me. And again, we're talking about two different things. Using psychedelics and plant medicines to heal, and using them to, let's call it, expand your mind and reach higher levels of consciousness. They're very related, but they're not the exact same thing. I have been mainly focused on using psychedelics and plant medicines to heal trauma and to connect with myself better. Now, by default, I've had some consciousness raising and seen some crazy stuff and whatever, but like, that's not been my focus. And a lot of people who start with psychedelics, I think, start there. Mm-hmm. Like, let's do 5-MeO-DMT and talk to aliens happens. And shit. Yeah. Right. And it's like, look, you can start there, but that's like learning to swim in the middle of the Pacific. Mm-hmm. Like, I guess you could do it, but probably not what you'd recommend, man.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I started with the MDMA, because it's so safe. It's so gentle. It's so effective on trauma. And it's like it's like learning to swim in the kiddie pool, you know. So yeah, man, like if you don't want to be stuck, if you're afraid of being stuck, it's very, very simple. It's very simple to understand. The reason you're stuck is because you're trying to hold on to something that you can't hold on to. Right? So then just understand you gotta let go. And the only thing you can do is ride the waves, not hold on to a thing that is unholdable. And the surfing is a great metaphor. Like imagine trying to like say, all right, this awesome wave that I'm on, I'm just going to stay on this wave. And you would look at them like, are you retarded? Like it's going to hit the beach. It's not possible. You can't ride a wave forever because waves aren't forever. But yet, and life is the same way. It really is the exact same way. So whatever phase you're in, now I'm not saying don't bail on the wave until you have to. If you got a good wave and you're on it, ride it for as long as you can. But when it's over, let it go. Same thing with whatever phase of life you're in.
I get it, man. You're totally right. I think what's interesting when we start to strip away persona, right? We're looking at who we are. Hang on, I'm now attached to something that I was, but I no longer am. I need to update my software. I'm now about to be a dad. I'm becoming a dad. I want to get a girlfriend who could become my wife. All of these things. The frustrating thing that I found over the last 4 years is it's like a pass the parcel. Like you strip away some of the wrapping paper, and then underneath the wrapping paper, there's some more wrapping paper, and you just keep on going, and you're like, fuck, I thought, like you just keep on tearing it off, and you're like, no, this got to be the last one. This has to be below this, it's got to be the last one. And then you just keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. It's just all wrapping paper. I wonder if that's the game.
Yeah, realizing there's nothing there. Yeah, that's what not just the Buddhists, but almost any tradition will tell you. Like at the end of the day, that look, it's funny. The last 18 months, I've done so much reading into a lot of people I hadn't really paid close attention to before. People like Rumi, Jesus. I knew a lot of Buddhism, but like really kind of diving into different angles. And what's funny is they all say the same thing. Like they really say the exact same thing. Buddha said, everything you need, everything you require, you have in you. Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within. Rumi said, all the stars in the galaxy, all the stars in the sky are nothing compared to the journey inward, or something like that. They all said all the great avatars said the exact same thing, that everything you need, you have inside. It's just a matter of going inward, doing that work. You know, that's it. That's all it is, man. Like it's, I feel like if anyone's listening to this and think this dude's an idiot or a crazy person, I get it, because 2 years ago, I would have said the same thing. Listen to this. I would have, man. But it's like, oh, fuck. Once you get it, it makes total sense. And so now it's like, it's funny too, man, because like we were pretty successful 2 years ago, but the success and stuff I'm doing is just going up, 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 up. And it's like, it's gone up in almost direct proportion to how much I've let go of not working. Right? Like I'm here, I'm doing a podcast. Not working, but trying, holding on to, I've got to have this, or I've got to have that, or I'm trying to orchestrate that, or this is the thing I need to succeed. And understanding that I have it. You know, it's all right here. And that whether I succeed or fail is essentially both a story I tell myself and a feeling I have, and that I actually get to control that. And I get to decide that. It sounds so trite from the outside, man, but once you get it, it just clicks.
How do you marry that very holistic view with failures and success in life with the fact that you need to get up and do the grind?
Yeah, I don't think you have to grind. If you're grinding, you're doing it wrong.
How so?
Because by definition, a grind is awful. No, seriously. Like, you know what my days are, man? I'll be honest, my Mondays sometimes are a little bit of a grind because I got a lot of calls, a lot of things like this. And some of them I like this conversation is pretty cool. Not all of them. So like there's always, I'm not fully here, but my life now is 80% things that I love doing, things that energize me. Like if you want a rubric, manage your energy, right? The things that energize you, do those. The things that don't energize you, either don't do, or if you have to do them, pay someone to do them who's energized by them. Like the idea that I would have to like put numbers in a spreadsheet, like put a bullet in my brain. But the two accountants at my company love it. They just love it's like their thing, right? So we hired people that, you know, that do that, and like we trade, and it's great. You know, they don't like talking to people. I'm real good at that. So we both spend our days doing things that energize us, right? And I think most people don't do that. They load their brain with shoulds. I should do this, shoulds and haves. Have to do this, should do that. It's a fucking story in your head, man. I've yet to meet a person who's like really truly has a should or have story that can't be broken down. And I know there's a million people probably listening, oh, well, mine's different. You're not any fucking different, man. I had all those things, and I'm a better arguer than you are. And I was wrong.
Yeah, we get back to the brain being able to convince us of pretty much anything, right?
Exactly.
I recently had Kamal Ravikant on, and he's got this lovely. He's a good guy, man. He's got the 3 steps of how he sees life. Life happens to me, life happens for me, life happens through me, right? And it's that it ties into a victim mentality. It ties into leaning into discomfort, which is one of my favorite sayings, where it talks about lean into discomfort as if you invited it through the door. You know, it's this is something that's here. It's here for growth. It's all tied together. I don't know how it all fits together, but it is.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm on the cusp of I feel like I've kind of got it, but not well enough to explain it to anybody, right? But here's the thing with this, man, is I'll tell you the things that I have, like I got it.
Cool.
You can't really truly explain. You can use words, but the gap between understanding and words is big. And so like, it's sort of like, imagine, okay, so this is one you can get. No one would think that you can learn about sex from watching porn. You get some information from it, right? But the gap between having sex and watching porn is huge. And you really don't even know how big the gap is till you start having sex. You're like, oh, wow. Like and I mean everything. The experience of how good it is, how different it is, everything, right, is different. You can understand how they're related, but they're really totally different. Same thing is true about trying to talk about enlightenment, right? The words don't work, you know? And like we use words because that's how we communicate. Words and symbols and pictures, but what you and I are talking about right now is experiential. You must walk the path. This is the best Buddhist quote. It is not enough to read the words of Buddha. You must walk his path, right? You have got to do this work to understand it. And you can use other people's experiences and examples and words as guides. That's really helpful, but it is no substitute, this is the problem with Christianity, is that basically from the Catholic Church onward, the church has tried to replace Jesus's experience. They try to take his experience and make people substitute an acted out version of his experience for their experience, right? That's the problem with Christianity, is that it's not, you don't experience the feeling, you act out Jesus's. You know, that's communion, right? All that sort of shit. Whereas the Buddhists will tell you, no, you've got to actually do the work. Same with Islam. You don't actually experience it. It's Muhammad's words, right? I think that's bullshit. I think that was really the big thing that psychedelics showed me, and the path is like, oh, I have to experience this. Like that's the irony, is I was totally atheist before, and now I'm way more, not formal religious, but like way more like, oh, I totally get Jesus now. 100%.
Accepting of spirituality.
No, because like now I've felt it. I've experienced it. Like I got none of that through any sort of formal religion, but now I understand what's called an ecstatic experience. Now I totally get it. I know what he meant when he said the kingdom of heaven is within. There was no words you could have explained to me. Then I did, like a massive dose of mushrooms in a therapeutic setting. And I'm like, oh shit, this is what he means. Now it makes sense. I totally get what it means. The kingdom of heaven is within. Yes,
Yeah.
it is within. He's right.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that your experiences with psychedelics have caused you to become slightly more spiritual and religiously minded, or at least religiously accepting. One of the co-hosts of the show, Yusuf, was Muslim until around about 22, 23, and then a psychedelic trip caused him to recant religion overnight. Which
form of religion, of course, absolutely. I totally get it. Yeah, no doubt. Because all it is, think of it, it's just someone standing between you and an experience and telling you, you have to rely on me to tell you what the experience is. Fuck you, I can go do it myself.
The interpreter that's trying to make it. I really appreciate what you said as well about the how words can't really describe the sensation, especially for me, someone who prides himself on being precise with his speech. I try and articulate, right? I try and be lucid. I try and do these things, but they're just proxies for the notion that we have. Mm-hmm. They're just this thing.
They're proxies for experiences.
Yeah. I'm trying to get it out. And the words, even words themselves, read 1984, right? Read 1984, and that tells you all that you need to know about how language is related to the thoughts that we have in our brain. Because if you don't have the words, the thoughts essentially they never get communicated. They don't exist. They don't exist outside of ephemeral, nebulous, cloudy little notions in our heads.
They're experiences is what they are.
Mm-hmm. But they're only ever yours. Can't communicate.
Yeah. No, I get it.
You mentioned about the two paths to do with psychedelic therapy. One being consciousness raising, one being more therapeutic. What is it that is making that determination? Is it intention going in? Is it set and setting? Is it dosage? Is it a combination?
It's a lot of those things, man. It really is. But so when I say therapeutic, I mean like basically figuring out what your trauma is, and then or your stuck emotions, call it, because all really trauma is unfelt emotion, unfelt feelings. And so it's essentially making it easier for you to feel that so that you can then let it go, right? And psychedelics make that with the right guidance and the right intention, the right set and setting, the right psychedelics. Because not all are good at that, but the ones that are good at that are fucking magical, dude. Mm-hmm. Like MDMA is amazing at it. Lower dose mushrooms tend to be pretty good at it. LSD can be in certain areas. There's others. Like, I mean, I'm not the expert on that side. I know it pretty well, but I'm not the dude you would call to be the expert. Mm-hmm. But like, if you do the mind expansion and consciousness expansion stuff without the trauma work beforehand, it's doable. But it's sort of like getting a really nice car and taking it for a fast drive with the windshield like dirty, you know? Like it makes it a lot harder. It can first off, that's how you can get really dark stuff. Like that's what a quote bad trip is you take a bunch of LSD and the LSD didn't do anything to you. It brought up a lot of stuff you have in you and you aren't ready or willing to deal with it. That's what a bad trip is. There's a few exceptions that are very rare or whatever but for most people, that's what a bad trip is. And so like, that's why for most people, you want to do your work first. It's sort of like, you know, the way I think about it just for shorthand is like, I got to clean my house before I try and go talk to God. Right. And so it's like, I'm not going to go talk to God with a dirty house. And so I got to get my house at least in order. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I got to get everything put away. I got to get all cleaned. Once my house is in order, then I can go take my meeting, you know?
Mm-hmm. It seems like to me, MDMA it's been a number of clinical trials now for it being used for PTSD therapy, being used for a lot of different things. For me, my experience, I've never taken MDMA in my life without being drunk in a club. That's it. Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean? It's not a therapeutic drug to me. It doesn't even speak of psychedelic in nature.
It's not a psychedelic. It's not a psychedelic. It's not even in that class. It's a totally different molecular compound.
Yep.
It's not at all. But dude, when you take it I know a lot of people who used to do like a gram of MDMA a weekend or crazy stuff like that, right? Like a lot. Mm-hmm. And then they went through that phase and now they're out and they do it therapeutically. And it's like, they're like, oh my God, I had no idea. Like
different drug.
Totally different experience.
That's fascinating. That is really, really fascinating. I really hope that it gets rolled out more. I think it's got a lot of...
It'll be legal in probably in America. It's actually, there's a few places where you can do it. Compassionate care licenses. Those clinics are being opened this year. It'll be widely legal in 2021 or 2022, probably. It's already in stage 3 clinical trials.
For therapeutic use. Guided.
Therapeutic use, right, with a prescription and all that sort of stuff, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Got you. Okay. You mentioned, so one of the flags in the ground of your life, of the transition from old Tucker to new Tucker, was when you said that you were kind of giving up fratire, which was this particular type of writing that you've done. And since then, am I right in thinking the only thing that you've brought out is this Scribe method? Is that right?
No, I wrote a book with Jeff Miller called What Women Want, which is like the instructional guide for guys about how to deal with women, how to understand women, how to deal with women, how to talk to them, how to become attractive to them, all that sort of stuff. It's the best book on that subject by far in the marketplace. We did a pretty poor job positioning it and marketing it. That book is like the best example ever that product doesn't beat marketing all the time. Right? Like there's all these idiots that have all this dumb shit stuff out there that they market the hell out of. And like, we didn't want to approach it that way. And like, so we ended up like, we wrote the best book. It's by far the best info. Like the dudes who read it, and a lot do, that I get an email every week from a guy who's like, oh my God, I spent all this money on all these stupid dating coaches, and it was all it has changed my life and whatever. The problem with the book, man, is that we don't play the it's not your fault game. We don't blame women for problem. We don't play up to the most toxic emotions in dudes. And so like it's a lot harder to sell personal responsibility and accountability. And it's a lot harder to sell real hard work. And it's hard to sell facing your problems and things like that, which is what we do in there. But what's funny is, like, I told dudes, I'm like, listen, you want to have the life I have? Go do this book. That's it, man. You want to be married to an incredible, amazing woman who's hot, have a bunch of kids with her, have a bunch of money, whatever. However, the details of my life don't matter, right? Because like some people don't give a shit about wine.
Whatever success looks like by the metrics you've made.
Success looks like to you.
Yep,
it's here. You just have to do the work. It's not complicated. It's just difficult.
Isn't it fascinating that you wrote a book that was positioned too virtuously for it to capitalize on its own success? Yeah, that's really interesting. So the guys, there's a video going around Twitter today from the guys from 21 Convention. Do you know what that is?
Yes.
Yeah. So the dude behind that, I forget his name, which kind of says it all. The dude behind the 21 Convention thing was on a British talk show this morning with Piers Morgan. You'll know who Piers Morgan is. Piers kind of doesn't really pull his punches. And him and this female co-host just tear this guy's arsehole out. Like, absolutely annihilate him about all of he's wearing a Make Women Great Again hat. And he's just everything that's wrong with like the whole sort of manosphere.
It's almost too easy of a target, man. It's like, of course you could make fun of this idiot.
Yeah. He's like the Colby Covington UFC fighter of like, and I'm like, fuck, man. Like, this isn't WWE. You're supposed to be putting yourself across as a legitimate male development place.
I mean, if you're going to play the heel, the bad guy, at least do a good job. Like Conor McGregor does a good job of that, right? There's a way to do that where you can do a good job. They're too dumb or too emotionally undeveloped to actually do it well. And
I'm gonna get Rollo Tomassi on. I really, really want to have a discussion with Rollo. I want to find out.
I don't know who that is.
Guy that wrote The Rational Male. So he's widely sort of earmarked as the person who began the red pill movement for men. It seems like he's genesis for that, or at least that's what it's called online. And I got a few questions for that, which today's helped to inform me about.
In my experience, those dudes are all of them are extraordinarily broken, and they just blame their shit on everyone else. And even the ones, there's ones that make really good arguments about a lot of things, right? And so it's not like because they're broken, all their arguments are wrong. That's bullshit. Like you can so many good points about a lot of stuff. And it's not like the other side. It's not like the fucking social justice warriors are any better. They're just as awful. They're just as broken. They're just as victim mindset or worse. But like those dudes, like it's like they get their little, like any of them, they get their little echo chamber, and it's like, oh, it's not your fault. It's not your fault either. Okay, we'll be broken and lonely together. And it's like, all right, dude, then go have your shitty life. It's fine with me.
Look at the way that what we spoke about twice, two different situations that have come up in this conversation. The first one is how you find that nuance and that understanding in yourself, right? Doing the work on yourself, your truthfulness and stuff like that. And that not actually being quite as polarizing, and some people not really even responding to that as much. You know, you were the party guy, you were the this guy, you were the that guy. And then the second thing being the book which delivered a more nuanced, more a deeper, more truthful, more transparent, more difficult to swallow pill. Yeah. But both of those things kind of jar with people sometimes, but the easy to sort of swallow single line, single tweet length synopsis is more effective. Man, I wish it wasn't the case. Look, we're gonna talk about the Scribe method and everything else, but you guys launched David Goggins' book. If there's people that are listening who want to learn how to write a book, 500 pages, is that the Scribe method PDF?
Yeah, just honestly. So we have, like, look, if you want to pay someone to do it all for you, we're the company. But most people, I'm sure, can't. Just go to scribebookschool.com. Everything that we do with our clients who pay us 5 and 6 figures to work with them, we explain all of it and lay it all out in detail. So if you don't have money but you have time, just, it's all there for free. Go do it yourself, no problem.
And you said this beautiful quote, which I've heard from you, which says, everybody has wisdom inside of them. They just need to get it down onto a page. Something along those lines.
They have to get it out. You can use video too. There's nothing wrong. Video is great, man. We're about to launch a big YouTube channel. But we just do books. Books are a big way, a really specific way. Mm-hmm. They're not the only way.
And you got a specialist. You're a specialist in that, right? That's your background. Yep. Yep. Awesome, man. Tucker, if people want to hassle you online, where should they go?
Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm not hard to find.
Glorious. Thanks, man.